Ever get that feeling, like you're kind of your own worst enemy?
Yeah, totally. Like you're holding yourself back somehow.
Exactly. And I feel like this book we're diving into today speaks directly to that.
Oh, for sure. Letting go. The pathway of surrender.
That's the one. And it's interesting, right? Because it's not about adding more to our plates. It's about letting go.
It is. Letting go of what's weighing us down. I mean, that's a fascinating approach. The book really dives into this whole idea,
Like, what are we holding on to?
yeah, this reservoir of negativity we all carry around, like all those old hurts and the fears, the frustrations we haven't really dealt with.
Because it's so easy to just kind of shove those things down and pretend they're not there.
Totally. But this book is saying, hey, they're impacting our lives way more than we realize.
It's so true. It's like that thing, right, where you have a past hurt and it makes you react in a way that even you're like, whoa, where did that come from?
All the time. The book calls it like suppressed emotions or something, and they don't just disappear.
They fester.
Exactly. And they can manifest in all these weird ways, like creating unwanted events or even messing with our physical health.
It's like our body finds a way to communicate what our mind is trying to keep hidden.
Totally. They even talk about like how our emotions impact our energy field, our aura.
Okay, so the whole aura thing, it's definitely been explored by a lot of different traditions and practices, right?
Right. And some people believe it really reflects our emotional and physical state.
And then there's Kirlian photography, which is supposed to capture this energy field.
It's still debated by scientists, though, right?
Yeah, it's one of those things, but still, it's compelling. This whole idea that our emotions have a tangible impact on us. It makes you think.
For sure. It connects our mind and body in this whole new way.
So if we are carrying around all this baggage, what's the solution? How do we deal with it?
That's where letting go comes in, right?
Yeah.
But it's not just letting go of negative emotions. It's deeper than that.
It's like a whole shift in how we approach life.
Exactly. They have this thing, it's called the scale of emotions.
Oh, yeah. Like a ladder with those lower rungs being the negative emotions, fear, anger, that kind of stuff.
Yes. And then the higher you climb, you get to those positive states, like love and peace.
Okay, so the idea is we practice this letting go, and we're essentially climbing that ladder. We move to a higher vibration.
Exactly. And get this. It's not just about feeling better, though. That's obviously a huge part of it.
It's about being more.
Yes.
Oh,
More effective, more abundant, like it unlocks something.
It's wild, like as if operating from this higher emotional state just allows for more success. Effortless success, even. That's a powerful thought.
It is powerful. And the book doesn't just leave it as this abstract idea either. They get practical.
Okay, so how do we actually achieve this emotional liberation?
Well, they stress this point. It's not enough to just understand these ideas in your head.
How to put it into practice.
Exactly. We need action. And one of the biggest things they talk about,
Let's hear it.
it's not enough to just release the negative. You have to embrace the positive. They call it stopping resistance to positive emotions.
Okay, now that is interesting. So what does that look like? Like in real life, how do we stop resisting?
So think of something like forgiveness, right? Sometimes holding on to anger, holding on to resentment, it's almost easier than actually forgiving,
It's true, though. It's like we cling to that negative emotion.
even though it's hurting us. And they have this great example about buying a gift.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Imagine you have to buy a gift for someone you secretly resent.
Ooh, I've been there.
If you're holding on to that resentment, it's a chore.
Right. The worst.
But if you can tap into generosity, the whole experience changes.
It's like choosing to see the gift as a bridge instead of some burden. I love that. What else do they suggest? What are some other tools in the letting go toolbox?
Another big one. Surround yourself with the right people. People who embody the qualities you're looking for. They call it hanging out with the winners.
Makes you think about who you're spending your time with, right?
Right. Who's lifting you up? Who's inspiring you?
No, because negativity is contagious. Let's be real.
100%. And get this, the book talks about this too, how our energy fields, those auras, can actually be influenced by who we're around.
Wait, really?
They have stories about how the author would see people's auras changing based on their company.
Isn't that fascinating? It's like energetic peer pressure.
Totally. And speaking of relationships, the book doesn't just stop at our inner world.
Oh, I'm sure it gets juicy. How does letting go work in relationships, especially romantic ones? I'm ready for this.
Well, they talk about this idea. Clinging too tightly, being driven by fear of loss or insecurity, It can actually become a self-fulfilling prophecy.
You manifest what you fear.
Exactly.
So it's about finding that balance,
Yeah.
right? Connection, but also respecting each other's individuality.
Right, because that's tricky. But they want us to really look at the root of why we get clingy. Is it love? Or are we trying to control things out of fear?
And if it's fear, that's where the letting go comes in. Trusting ourselves, trusting our partner.
Exactly. And they have this great example to illustrate this. There's this woman, she's trying to heal from a divorce, right?
Okay, relatable.
So she joins a support group. Sounds good so far, right?
Yeah, totally normal thing to do.
But the group, it's full of people still so bitter and angry at their exes.
Oh no, that sounds like a recipe for staying stuck.
Exactly. And the book uses this example to show how surrounding yourself with negativity, even if your intention is good, it can backfire.
It's like be mindful of the energy you're inviting in, especially when you're vulnerable.
100%.
It really is like that, though. Misery loves company, you know? So we have to be careful about who we surround ourselves with, but then there's that whole other layer of actually elevating our own emotional state, which is easier said than done sometimes.
Right. It takes real effort. But it's interesting because the book even gets into how we can actually measure these emotional states.
Wait, what? How do you measure an emotion? Isn't that subjective?
You'd think so, but they talk about measuring it energetically.
Mm-hmm.
And they introduced this method called kinesiology. Have you heard of that?
Okay, I'm not familiar. Break it down for me.
So it's essentially muscle testing. And it's based on this idea that our bodies react differently to positive and negative stimuli.
Okay, that makes sense. Like, our body knows what's up even when we don't.
Right. Like positive thoughts, positive emotions, they actually make us physically stronger.
Interesting. So we're literally stronger when we're feeling good.
That's what they're saying. And negative emotions, they weaken us. It's
Yeah,
wild.
so our bodies are like these walking, talking mood rings.
Basically. And they've actually used this muscle testing, this kinesiology, to calibrate what they call different levels of consciousness. Like they assign numerical values to emotional states.
Whoa. Okay, so each emotion has its own energy level, and that level, it impacts how we feel, but also how effective we are out in the world.
Yes. Like we're operating on these different frequencies. And those frequencies either attract or repel positive experiences.
Okay, I'm picking up what you're putting down. So the higher you climb on that emotional scale, the more, what is it, effortless life becomes.
Exactly. And they talk about people who, like, consistently operate from a place of love. They experience more synchronicities, have more healing power. They just navigate life differently.
Okay, but that begs the question, what could we achieve if we could actually shift our baseline emotional state to a higher level?
Right. Like, what if we could handle all the ups and downs, but from a place of peace and love, instead of constantly being in fear and resentment? It's mind-blowing.
It's huge. And I think that's the exciting part of this whole letting go thing. It's like we have this potential within us, but how do we tap into it? How do we actually make that shift? Because it's one thing to talk about it, but what are the steps?
Well, the book really emphasizes self-awareness as the first step. Like, just observing your emotional state throughout the day. No judgment, just noticing.
Okay, so like mindfulness, but for our feelings.
Exactly. You're tuning into your internal world, right? And once you see the patterns, then you can consciously choose something different.
Love it. So how do we do that? What's the choosing differently part look like?
They talk about this technique called conscious releasing, which is basically you acknowledge the feeling, you actually let yourself feel it fully, but without resisting it.
Oh, that's hard.
It is hard. But then you consciously choose to let it go.
Easier said than done, for sure. Especially with those deep-rooted patterns, you know?
Oh, absolutely. But they're not saying it has to be perfect. It's about making progress, celebrating the small wins, you know? Even a tiny shift can have a big ripple effect.
That's encouraging, because it can feel overwhelming otherwise. Right. But okay, you mentioned reaching these higher levels of consciousness, and I'm still stuck on that. What does that actually look like in daily life?
Well, they tell these incredible stories about people who, through this dedicated practice of letting go, they reach this state of peace. It's almost unimaginable.
Like, what does that even mean? Are they levitating?
No. But they describe it as effortless joy. Like anxieties and fears just kind of dissolve and life flows. They experience all these synchronicities. It's pretty remarkable.
So it's like they've tapped into this different way of being.
Yes. And it's not that they're special. It's more like this wholeness that's within all of us. It's already there.
Buried under all our baggage.
Exactly. The conditioning, the limiting beliefs, all that stuff. But it's accessible.
Okay, now that is a beautiful thought, that we have that potential within us.
Right. And the book even suggests that by tapping into these higher levels of consciousness, we don't just transform our own lives, but we impact the world around us too.
It's like that whole be the change you want to see thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's even bigger than that. It's about how our energy, by just being more peaceful and loving, we affect others.
Like a ripple effect.
Totally.
Yeah.
And they tell all these stories about people who, through their own inner work, they see their relationships change, their work environment, their communities, everything. It's all connected.
It's wild. It makes you think about how powerful this stuff really is. But let's be real, this letting go, it's not always easy. And the book acknowledges that. Like, there will be tough times, especially with deep-seated fears and traumas. How do we deal with those?
Well, they really emphasize self-compassion. Like, it's okay to not be okay. It's about approaching those painful feelings with kindness, with understanding. They're part of being human, you know?
So instead of judging ourselves, we can get curious about those emotions.
Exactly. Create a safe space to just feel them and heal.
And they have specific tools for this, right?
Yeah, they talk about journaling, meditation, even just physical movement. It's about finding what works for you.
It's a whole person approach, you know? Mind, body, spirit. But they're also realistic. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Totally. It's a lifelong journey. Ups and downs, the whole shebang. It's
Fair.
not about achieving some perfect state of bliss. It's about learning to ride the waves with more grace, more resilience.
Love that. And we don't have to do it alone.
Right. They're big on seeking support, whether it's friends, family, a therapist, support groups. It's okay to ask for help.
It's a sign of strength, not weakness. But, okay, beyond just dealing with fear, the book also talks about stepping into our power. What's that all about?
Well, they talk about how fear keeps us feeling powerless, like victims of our circumstances, right? But when we release that grip, we can start to shape our own reality.
So it's about realizing we have a choice in how we respond to things.
Yes. And they even give us these empowering questions to ask ourselves, like, what am I really afraid of losing here?
Yeah.
Or why am I giving this person, this situation, so much power over me?
I love those questions.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to give our power away without even realizing it.
It really is.
Yeah.
But we can take it back. It's about recognizing that we have more agency than we often think we do.
So it's about awareness, choice, and responding from a place of power instead of reacting from fear and limitation.
Yes, and that's really what this whole letting go thing is all about. It's not passive, it's not about giving up, it's about being empowered, living a more fulfilling life on your own terms.
I'm so glad we did this deep dive. Letting Go, The Pathway of Surrender, everyone. What a book. It's profound how it connects releasing negativity with stepping into our true potential. It really feels like this book, Letting Go, it's giving us this whole roadmap, you know? Not just to feel better, but to actually become a better version of ourselves.
Totally. And they talk about that, how fear keeps us stuck, keeps us playing it safe. But when we start to let go of that fear,
The possibilities open up.
exactly, like fear is this barrier holding us back from our true potential.
It's so true. But how do we even begin to let go of something so powerful?
Well, they talk about how a lot of our fear, it comes from this identification with what they call the small self. That part of us that's all about survival, ego, limitations.
Oh, I know that voice. It's like the king or queen of what if.
Totally. The voice of insecurity and doubt, always whispering in your ear. But when we connect more deeply with our true selves, that's where the magic happens.
So it's about shifting our sense of identity, recognizing that we are not our fears. We are so much bigger than that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they actually share this incredible story about a therapist who was treating a woman who was crippled by phobias.
Okay, so she had these intense fears.
Intense, and nothing was working to help her overcome them. But then, get this, the therapist just starts focusing on sending her love and acceptance.
Wait, what? Like just sending good vibes her way? And that helped.
It sounds crazy, right? But the book talks about how love is this powerful antidote to fear.
Okay, I can see that. Like love creates safety.
Exactly. So as this woman felt more loved, more accepted, her phobia started to decrease. Isn't that wild?
It's proof that a shift in energy can create real change. It's not just some woo-woo idea. So instead of trying to fight our fears, we can approach them with compassion.
Exactly. And remember, we don't have to do this alone. The book talks about finding support, whether it's loved ones, a therapist, a support group. Having that network makes a huge difference.
We're stronger together, for sure. But okay, beyond navigating fear, this book also challenges us to step into our power. What does that actually mean, though?
Well, they talk about how fear keeps us feeling powerless, like we're victims of our circumstances. But as we let go of that fear, we start to see the power we actually have.
To shape our own reality.
Exactly. And they encourage us to ask these really powerful questions like, what am I so afraid of losing here? Or why am I letting this person or this situation have so much control over me?
Such good questions, because it's so easy to give our power away without even realizing it.
Right? But we have a choice. We always
Okay.
have a choice in how we respond to life.
And that's what it means to be empowered, right? Recognizing that we have agency. We're not just along for the ride.
Exactly. And that's the heart of letting go. It's not about giving up. It's about choosing a more fulfilling way of being.
I love that. This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. Letting go, the pathway of surrender. This book is a game changer.
It really is. It gives you the tools.
It does. And I think that final question they ask is so powerful.
Oh, you mean the one about what would happen if you let go of one negative emotion that's been holding you back?
Yes. What would become possible? It's a question worth sitting with.
For sure. It's a journey, right? This whole letting go thing.
It is. It's a lifelong practice. So, to everyone listening, keep exploring, keep letting go, and keep discovering the incredible potential that's within you. Until next time.